Hey there, my fellow Sonnet Unscramblers. It's time for the solution for Unscramble number 4, and as we've been learning, it's all about asking the right questions. And today we start off with a big question right away as we notice something unusual when we divide the lines into their various rhyming groups, and that's this group of 4. And one of the clues today is that this group of 4 is actually to be divided into 2 groups of 2 lines apiece. How are we going to do that? Well, we are going to notice something interesting in the way that these 4 lines are phrased. Sonnet writers will frequently repeat patterns. And in this case, I notice that we have 2 lines that begin with if and 2 lines that begin with why. So I believe that these 2 and then these belong together. We end up with 7 different rhyme sounds, and that's the Shakespearean pattern. And we've learned that in the Shakespearean pattern, typically we're going to have, not typically, always, we're going to have 2 lines in the concluding couplet that go back to back. Any other place the rhyme is going to be separated, but it's at the very end that the 2 lines are together. We have lots of choices today because of all the various end marks. The best solution, though, the one that draws attention, is the one line that ends not with a question mark but actually with a period. Several of you have noticed that. Let's test it by reading them together. It does start, this line does start in the middle of a thought, but that's not going to bother me for now. Favors, I think, would sense quite overcome, and that makes happy lovers ever dumb. I'm going to go with that for now, at least for lines 13, 14. I like the sense of overcoming the senses, leaving a person dumbstruck or mute, that is, unable to speak. So let's set those aside for our lines 13 and 14. I also know by the clues that line E belongs in position 8, and this is line E, and line C belongs in number 9. Let's find that one. So these are going to go back to back. Now that's helpful because when I know my rhyme scheme, I know that this is the partner. I've decided to go with line 9. This will be 11, and likewise this will be line 6, the rhyming partner, to go with line 8. So right now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 positioned rather quickly. That's encouraging. Now, where do we go from here? Well, let's set these aside for the moment. I like to physically isolate the lines that I'm working with, and with all the end marks, all the question marks today, let's recognize that we do need to partner up lines that begin with a question word, for example these 2, with lines that end with a question mark. Question words should end with question mark. These don't. I've got 2 candidates here, I've got 2 candidates here, but I'm going to notice that these 2 lines begin with a question word, end with a question mark, actually expressing a complete thought by themselves. Let's take those out of the mix and see if I can't match up these 4 lines. Well, I notice this line that says, why should I sing in verse, why should I frame, and then to be continued. And the idea of singing in verse is nicely continued in this line here of these sad neglected notes. That repetition of idea line to line is a common trait of sonnets. Let's check the other 2 here. Why should I offer up unto her name the sweetest sacrifice my youth can make? That works fairly well too, because sacrifices are offered up to a deity. That would be consistent with the male lover speaking about a beautiful woman, maybe of a higher social class, or at least proud, condescendingly so, in some way above him. So I like these 4 lines together. Now I don't know, do they go in this order? Do they go in this order? And for today, please feel successful if you got them together and you got them into pairs in either order. This happens to be the correct order. I noticed several other lines that also begin with, again, a question word, in fact, why. And we got some question words here as well. And I remember something from last time, and that is that we're going to have two stanzas that work together, two quatrains. The first four lines and the second four lines work together. The second four oftentimes simply restating what was already expressed in the first four. Well, I do have two lines of the second four already in place. That's these two lines right here, plus my line 9. Let's get that out of the way for the moment. So I've got these two left over, and I'm struck right now by the repetition of this word live. This repetition of words from line to line is another common trait. Why should I strive to make her live forever that never deigns to give me joy to live? Dictionary will be helpful here for you, but I like the sense that I'm trying to make her live through his poetry, but she's not giving me any joy to help keep me alive, not giving me any joy by returning the affection. Let's attempt this line here, the alternating rhyming pattern again. Does it work with our line 8? Why should my afflicted muse, that is my spiritual source of inspiration in writing poetry, so much endeavor, such honor unto cruelty to give? Why should my muse, my creative spirit, try so hard to give honor unto her cruelty? She's treating him cruelly by not returning his affection. These four lines work. They do, in fact, work with the four that we had previously paired, acknowledging that we might have had a struggle in determining which two went first, which two went in lines 3, 4. Nonetheless, this is the correct order for the first 8. Let's go ahead and move on now with the bottom portion. We had this one pre-identified as line 9, and therefore line 11, and we've got 13, 14. Now at this point, this is fairly fortunate because really I only have two different possible combinations with the remaining two lines. Either going to go in this order, or we're going to flip those around in some way. Let's try it this way first. If her defects have purchased her this fame, what passions would her milder favors move? If this her worst, how should her best inflame? What would her virtues do, her smiles, her love? Favors, I think, would sense quite overcome, and that makes happy lovers ever dumb. Well, certainly it works along the sense that we have the end of a thought here, here, and here, but I do want, in trial and error, to make sure I've tried both of my possible arrangements, so let's move these two around. You'll notice I position them slightly indented. That helps me keep track of which ones I'm testing at the moment. And let's read again. If her defects have purchased her this fame, what should her virtues do, her smiles, her love? If this her worst, how should her best inflame? What passions would her milder favors move? Favors, I think, would sense quite overcome, and that makes happy lovers ever dumb. Well, one thing I've taken upon right away is the repetition of that word favors back to back here. Again, that's not an accident. That's oftentimes intentional. So that's a sign that maybe we have them in the right order. And let's look also at this partnership of lines. I like the sense of defects and virtues, of weaknesses and strengths partnered here in these two lines. If her defects have purchased her this fame, have gained her this attention in my heart, and therefore in my poetry as I've written about her, what would happen if she showed me her strengths, her smiles, her love? What could I do with my poetry then? If this is her worst, if I'm seeing the worst side of her, how should the best sides of her personality inflame my passion all the more? What passion would her milder favors, her more gentle behaviors and manners move in my heart? This is the correct order. Notice that it has taken some very close reading to pick up on the repeated ideas, or in this case the contrasting ideas in these lines, the progression of ideas. Do remember, if you get the correct 4 lines in the correct quatrain, but maybe out of order, that's still a success, but we're going to keep moving on one more time in practice to try to master this process. Hope you did well. This was Sonnet Unscramble number 4.